Random House Audio presents The Night Strangers by Chris Bohjalian. Read for you by Alison, Fraser, and Mark Bramhall.
Our bodies are our gardens, to the which our wills are gardeners. William Shakespeare, Othello. Dead might not be quiet at all. Marcia Norman, Night Mother. Prologue. The door was presumed to have been the entry to a coal chute, a perfectly reasonable assumption since a small hillock of damp coal sat mouldering before it. It was a little under 5 feet in height and just about 4 feet wide, and it was composed of barnboard and thick pieces of rough-hewn timber. Its most distinguishing feature was not its peculiarly squat visage, and if a person were predisposed to see such things in the dim light of the basement, the knobs on the wood and the character of the planking did suggest the vague shadow of a face. But the fact that at some point someone had sealed the door shut with 6-inch-long wrought-iron carriage bolts. 39 of them ringed the wood, and it was all but impenetrable, unless one were feeling energetic and had handy an axe. The door glowered in an especially dank corner of the basement, and the floor before it was dirt. The fact was, however, that most of the basement floor was dirt. Only the concrete island on which sat the washing machine, the dryer, the furnace, and the hot water tank was not dirt. When most prospective buyers inspected the house, this was their principal concern: a floor that seemed equal parts clay and loam. That was what caused them to nod, their minds immediately envisioning runnels of water during spring thaws, and the mud that could be brought upstairs every time they did laundry, or descended there to retrieve, perhaps, a new light bulb or a hammer. It was a lot of largely wasted square footage, because the footprint of the house above it was substantial. As a result, the door was rarely noticed and never commented upon. Still, the basement walls were stone, and the foundation was sturdy. It capably shouldered 3 stories of Victorian heft, the elegant gingerbread trim along 3 different porches, which in the greater scheme of things weighed next to nothing, as well as the stout beams that weighed a very great deal, but stood invisible behind horsehair and plaster and lath. Though the first-floor ceilings were uniformly 12 feet, and the bedrooms and sitting rooms that marked the second and third floors no less than 10, the height of the basement ceiling wavered between 6 and 8 feet, and, underneath an addition from 1927, a mere 4 feet. The floor rose and fell like beach sand. Further capable of inducing claustrophobia, there were the immense lengths of copper tubing for gas and hot water, the strings of knob and tube electrical wiring, some live, some dead, and the horizontal beams that helped buttress the kitchen, the living room, and the dining room, the den, the library, the bright wide entry hallway, and the thinner, dark corridor that snaked behind the kitchen to the back stairs and the pantry. The copper tubing looped together in Gordian knots near the furnace and the hot water tank. This piping alone scared away some buyers. It certainly scared away many more than did that door. There were strategically placed jack posts in the tallest section of the basement, and a railroad tie turned vertical in the shortest. In the years the house was for sale, one real estate agent attributed her inability to sell it to the unwillingness of the cantankerous absentee owner to accept anything but the asking price, while another simply presumed it would take time for the right sort of family to express serious interest. All of the prospective buyers were from out of state. A great many were from Boston, enticed north into the White Mountains to see a house advertised in the Globe real estate section as the perfect weekend or retirement home for families that would appreciate its sweeping views of Mount Lafayette, or the phantasmagoric foliage offered each autumn by the sugar bush to the south and the east. It was only 20 minutes from a ski resort. Still, almost no one with any familiarity with the property, and that was the right term, with its connotations of acreage, 19 acres split between forest and meadow cut by a neighbor for hay, and outbuildings, too, including a garage that had once been a carriage barn and a small but workable greenhouse, showed any desire to buy it. No one from the nearby village of Bethel even looked at it, viewing it as a house with, and this was the euphemism they were likely to use, a history. At the same time, few of the agents who brought Flatlanders from Massachusetts, New York, and Pennsylvania to see the house ascribed its years on the market to the door in the basement or the 39 carriage bolts that sealed it shut.
When your airplane hits the flock of birds, the passengers in the cabin behind you feel the jolting bangs, and the aircraft rolls 15 degrees to its starboard side. The birds are geese, and it is not uncommon for you to see them from the flight deck as your plane begins its climb out of Burlington, Vermont. In this particular departure corridor, you see geese, crows, seagulls, lots of seagulls, and ducks all the time. The geese are flying perhaps 40 miles an hour, traveling in formation from one feeding area to another, angling south from Mallett's Bay, the animals always careful to keep near their cohorts. Today, your aircraft is a Bombardier CRJ-700, a regional jet that seats 70 passengers, 2 pilots, and a pair of flight attendants. This flight has 43 passengers and 3 attendants, 2 on duty who have been with the airline for over a decade and a half, and another who is merely commuting home to Philadelphia and has almost as much experience. Both working flight attendants are, by any standard, immensely competent. You do not know them well, but you have gotten to know them both a bit over the last 4 days together. Likewise, the pilots, if you may be so bold, are skilled too, though your first officer has only been flying for 3 years. The reality is that you and Amy have not been doing your jobs as long as the flight attendants have been doing theirs. But Amy Lynch is smart and funny, and you have enjoyed working with her the last few days, as you have flown between Washington, Pittsburgh, Charlotte, Columbus, Philadelphia, and finally, Burlington. She has nearly 3,500 hours of flying time, 21 with you over the last 4 days. You are a veteran who has been flying for 14 years, and you have finally lasted long enough for there to be talk that soon you may get to start training on an Airbus simulator and begin your climb to a considerably bigger plane and a considerably bigger salary. You have twin daughters, and in 8 years they will start college. That bigger paycheck matters, as does the esteem that comes with a 154-seat jet. This afternoon you see the birds, each with a wingspan almost the length of a man, just a second after your first officer does. She happens to be handling the takeoff. But the moment you fly through the drapes of geese, there it is, the sound you have always likened to a machine gun, the violent thud as each animal careens like a bullet into the metal and glass of your aircraft. The plane wobbles briefly to its side as first the left engine and then the right flame out. Most of those geese must weigh 10 or 11 pounds each, and when they careen into the engines, the animal's bones and feathers and flesh are turned almost instantly to jam and then almost as quickly incinerated. The passengers don't know what they are smelling, but they know there is a stench in the cabin that they have never inhaled during a takeoff before, and combined with the way the aircraft has pitched to starboard, they are experiencing what even the most frequent flyers would describe as an uh-oh sensation, as they peer out the fuselage windows. Meanwhile, you say, "My airplane," and you take the controls. You flip on the APU, the backup generator in the tail of the plane, because a few years ago, Chesley Sullenberger did this.
Sample complete. Ready to continue?